What's good? It's your boy Fanon. All right. Let's talk a little bit about this Vasily Lomachenko and the fact that Eddie Hearn, I think, is going to try to get this dude along with Dazn to get Lomachenko to fight on Dazn against Anthony Corolla. And man, it's going to be interesting. I think that this is something that might happen. And it's something that would probably be good for Vasily Lomachenko and something I wouldn't mind seeing, man. Got to tell you the truth, man. This is going to be interesting. The battle between Eddie Hearn and Bob Arum in ESPN. So they will probably go head to head on it. Now, here's the thing, man. They're going to have to come out of pocket in order to make that happen. And I'm not quite sure. And if what Eddie Hearn is saying here is true, they might have to pay some very, very serious money in order to get this fight, man. So we'll see it. And if that happens after the fight that Lomachenko has with Jose Pedraza to unify the belts for the WBA and the WBO, and I think that is on the second week of December. Then it'll be for the WBA and the WBO belt. Either way it goes, it would be for the WBA and the WBO belt. But there is a way, obviously, that it can happen on Dazn, and it is called a purse bid. And this is what, after I tell you what Eddie Hearn said specifically about it, I'll tell you why I think it's a pretty good deal. But it's a situation where if I'm Vasily Lomachenko, shoot, I want that to happen. But it's also at the same time, it's funny, man, how Guillermo Rigondeaux, seeing as Guillermo Rigondeaux got paid $400,000 to fight to fight Vasily Lomachenko. If what Eddie Hearn said is true, it's just, man, boxing's a fickle business, man, real fickle business. But anyway, this is how it goes. Okay, on Saturday night, the former world champion Anthony $1 Million Corolla secured a unanimous decision victory over Indonesia's Dawad Yoran in the co-main attraction of the Manchester Arena in Manchester, United Kingdom. Cool, it's a Manchester Arena, man. I thought that thing was I didn't know where that was. All right, so Corolla won his fight 116, 112, 116, 112. I thought that's a little wide, man, because I thought that dude was putting up a pretty decent fight, man. I thought he kind of got a few more rounds than that. But what Eddie Hearn says is, look, Lomachenko was promoted by Top Rank, who has an exclusive content deal with ESPN, and Hearn's company is aligned with the streaming service Dazn. The WBC will call the mandatory after Pedraza. We will be bidding with Dazn. Lomachenko's promoter on Top Rank will be bidding, and Anthony Corolla is going to make a fortune, and he deserves it. Hearn told Chris McKenna, "Don't get me wrong, it's a complete disaster of a fight for any man in boxing, and Corolla is right up against it. But he's done everything else, so why not go to New York or Vegas and fight for seven figures? We want it there. So we go to purse bids and let the boy make all the money in the world. Then maybe he can float off. Lomo's going to fight on December 8th, so it's not going to be until April or May. Corolla can sit tight until then." All right, so here's the thing. In order to make $1 million, they would have to pay, I do believe, Vasily Lomachenko $3 million in order to get to a $7 million payday. In order to get to a seven-figure payday, right? And let me repeat what he said. He said, yeah. I'm sorry, man. I lost it in my thing for the sake of this video rolling. Sometimes I do these videos like I'm talking. I always do these videos as a conversation, so forgive me. But he's done everything, so why not go to New York or Vegas and fight for seven figures? So that means Lomachenko will be getting at least $3 million because the WBA regulations stipulate in a purse bid that the champion gets 75%, the challenger gets 25%. So that's $4 million purse bid in order to get Anthony Corolla up to $1 million. I am pretty sure that Vasily Lomachenko makes like 1.5, 1.6 million a fight. So that's like twice the amount of money that Lomachenko would get otherwise. So in this case, it usually gets. In this case, if I'm Vasily Lomachenko, I'm like, yeah, please purse bid me $3 million to beat up on Anthony Corolla, because that ain't even a close fight. Man, that's a good deal. So, but what I would like to see, quite honestly, because I got to tell you, I have I have my opinions, and sometimes, my opinion can change. And I had said that the one thing that I liked about Dazn was the World Boxing Super Series. The World Boxing Super Series, to me, is the reason why I've pretty much watched every card that's been on Dazn. I have not paid any money to Dazn, but I've watched every fight card that's been on Dazn. And after a while, man, there's a bunch of fights like if you watch UK, a lot of these fights got UK fighters on them, and on the Matchroom side of it, on the World Boxing Super Series side of it, every fight is significant. And when you have a series, because you know exactly who it is, or the chance of who, you pretty much know who the guy's going to fight next if he wins, right? And if you don't know for sure, it's a 50-50 shot on who the guy's going to fight next. So last year, before the World Boxing Super Series was on Dazn, I watched as much as I could of the cruiserweight and the 168-pound title, man. And I'm telling you, from this year, because a good amount of that was this year. The last the cruiserweight and 168-pound tournaments, man, that was some of the highlights of the year, man. I really did enjoy watching Chris Eubank and George Groves, definitely Callum Smith and George Groves. There was a lot of very, very solid fights, and this year you're getting the 140-pound title, man. I'm amped about seeing Josh Taylor versus Baranicek and the Beast, and Regis Prograis versus Goddamn, man. Who is it? Kylie Relic? I think I'm probably killing that dude's name, but those are really exciting fights. This year, we got this weekend, got a very good Matchroom fight. The card, not so much. But hey, as I'm starting to get like 4 and 5 hours of boxing that I can watch consistently through the day, like, hey man, this thing does offer a little bit of a different dynamic from what you get on a Showtime or what you get on an ESPN, where you might get 2-3 fights. These guys are putting on 5-6 fights. And the Usyk Bellew was a lot better than I thought it was going to be. So anyway, man, I'm telling you, man, if they get Lomachenko over there on a purse, if they win the purse bid and have Vasily Lomachenko fighting Anthony Corolla, and they're consistently willing to go to purse bid and pay the money for these championship belts, hey man, it's going to be interesting, man. They're going to really drive up the price in the market through the purse bids, and we'll see whether or not ESPN and Top Rank are willing to counter that, because they're really going to have to put their pennies together and use their budget up to get Vasily Lomachenko to beat those guys in a purse bid. When you have, like, DAZN has already shown that they're willing to pay. Now, it's be interesting to see if you're going into the zone with the purse bid, because that would mean that the DAZN is a promoter, like is a registered promoter. You know what I mean? So I don't know how that is actually going to work. I'm 100% sure that Eddie Hearn can figure out how to move money from here to there. And I think all he needs to do is get like 10%. If they're WBA regulations or anything like the WBC regulations, they have to get a certain percentage after they win the purse bid. They have to pay up a certain percentage of it. But we'll see whether or not Bob Arum is able to fend off that type of money push from Eddie Hearn and DAZN like the PBC would do. Because there's no doubt in my mind that if the PBC tried to purse bid a champion, that they would beat that. They would more than likely beat that deal. Unless, the PBC said, their motto is fighter first. So if you're going to get like a purse bid, a mandatory purse bid against Errol Spence Jr., they're going to give him a $10 million offer, they might let him go over there for that fight. But anyway, man, I would really like to see Vasily Lomachenko on DAZN. I enjoyed that, man. I think I would really enjoy that fight, man. But the problem with those cards are like, and then there's another thing. If that card was going to wind up being I suppose that would be a matchroom card on DAZN in Vegas or whatever. And I think that Eddie Hearn's having a hard time getting into those venues. We'll see what the undercard looks like. That's the one weakness in those cards that I've seen so far, is the undercards are, like I said, there's one fighter I want to see. Last night there was pretty much just one fight that I wanted to see this weekend. PBC, there's 2 and 3 fights that you want to see. Sometimes it's just, you might just want to see the fighter, right? And it's not necessarily the most competitive fight that fighter's on there, but you do get three and 4 guys that you want to see fight. And then the last fight at the end is something could be a competitive fight, like the one that's coming up with Deontay Wilder and Tyson Fury. Anyway, so it is what it is. We'll see what happens. And with that, I'm out. Peace.